Tim, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot, 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all there. Nice move by Steve Fisher here. Turn it into the 19-9 game.
Welcome to the HVS 99 podcast. I am here with a special guest who just popped in out of nowhere. I extended an offer for him to come down here, and honest to God, did not think he would take me up on it. But here we sit with the one and only great Dan Woods, by far the greatest member of the Woods family. Apologies to Deb. Apologies to Deb. So we've been trying to get Dan down here for a while, and tonight just kind of worked. I gave Aaron the night off. He's working on a podcast with Joe for the NBA All-Star game, and so I just texted Dan. I said, "Come down here. Let's do a goddamn pod together, man. We need it." So welcome, Dan.
I'm excited. I've actually been looking forward to this forever.
I can't even take you serious. I'm gonna have to look at the mic instead of looking at you, or this thing's never gonna work. So we were off mic here, and we were talking like, okay, well, what the hell are we gonna talk about? So what the hell are we going to talk about down here? What do you want to talk about, Dan?
The greatest college basketball programs in the country. And it goes back to, like, we talk about how, like, I think the top three, regardless of time, you can look back, Kansas, Carolina, Kentucky, never go away. Regardless what coach, there's been multiple coaches at Carolina win, multiple coaches at Kentucky win, multiple coaches at Kansas win. Over a 50-year period of time, those have been the true three blue buds of the sport.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit before we got started, just as he got down here to HQ and was looking around, and we figured out we have a lot of the same thoughts on who these blue bloods are and why they are blue bloods, and we also had some similar thoughts on coaching and stuff. So you wanted to dive right in with that stuff. Let's just go one by one. Slow down over there, man. You can't give it. It's a slow bleed here.
But I don't know which one's one, or which one's two or three.
Right. Okay. So can we start? So I was telling you this is tough for me because I got to be the moderator here because you obviously have no idea what the hell you're doing sitting over there, which is normally me. Like you're normally me, where I'm like, no, I have no idea what we're talking about.
Just make it work.
Tell me something and stuff. So let's dispel the UCLA myth first and foremost.
Ooh, this is funny because we haven't talked about this.
No, we haven't. And let me preface it. Let me preface it before I give you some time.
Yeah.
UCLA is a top 5-ish, 10-ish program, right? And
yes.
I like, from the 99 standpoint of things, I would absolutely love to have UCLA as a licensee, John Wooden and the pyramid and all of the good stuff that goes with UCLA. But how much has changed over time? In the Jim Herrick, the 95 Bruins, I think you can look down there. There you go, Wizards again, and this is their highlight VHS tape that we're looking at right now. Love that team. Loved Tyus Edney, Cameron Dollar, Toby Bailey, the O'Bannon brothers. Yeah. Like, those teams were great. And I loved some of those older UCLA teams with Jaron Rush and all those guys, too. Those teams were awesome. I loved all of them.
That's before my time. Because I'm at 85. Yeah.
You're a little younger. But Jaron Rush wasn't before your time. That's like 98. 97, 98, somewhere in there.
The O'Bannons are
95.
with, like, the guys I remember wearing baggy T-shirts under their jerseys.
Yeah, exactly. But here's my only problem with UCLA, and problem's probably the wrong word. My only thing with UCLA and why I wanted to bring them up first is everybody gets hung up on the 10 national titles, right?
But it's fake. It's not real because John Wooden was fishing with dynamite when no one else was back in the day. So, like, that's the difference. Like, it's well known that they were paying people. And, like, guys were staying there averaging, like, 40 points a game.
Yeah, but okay, so here's my thing. I know you and I don't have a problem with paying guys.
Not at all. Bagman my team.
So take that argument out of it. Who gives a shit?
That's true. UCLA is such a hard one.
That's not my problem with UCLA at all. It's not my problem with UCLA at all. The problem with UCLA is every time I tune into a game that's at Pauley Pavilion, there's no buzz. There's like no hype. Like so here's the Indiana boy in me.
All right.
Here's the Indiana boy in me. I don't think people in LA care about basketball.
In my argument with so I will go back and I'll give history on me. I'm a Michigan basketball and football fan, so I'm like I'm a breeze around here. It doesn't matter. So my friends are all IU fans. It's why I think some of these blue blood jobs are so good, because having a home court advantage is massive, and UCLA doesn't have one. I mean, if you listen to like Doug Gottlieb and guys talk who like cover West Coast basketball, they talk about Paulie's kind of a dump. Like there's nothing now. The campus.
I don't mind it being a dump though. Like I like a dump.
But it's not even like it's not like great facilities. There is no fans even when Lonzo Ball and those guys had them. TJ Leaf, Lonzo Ball, they're like 17-2. They're playing a game against Oregon. I think both of them are in the top 5 or 6, and they didn't sell it out.
There's too much shit to do in LA.
For sure.
There's not much to do in some of the other towns that we're about to talk about.
But if you look back, so this is the nerd in me. If you go back from 2008 on, UCLA and Kansas almost have identical recruiting classes.
Wow.
Like, you don't think about guys that have come through UCLA and Ben Howland's 3 Final Fours back to back to back get left out all the time with those guys that were coming through there. Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook, Collison. They had guys left and right in there too.
Yeah, for sure. That's interesting because that could go into a completely different thing. So that can lead into a completely different thing about recruiting rankings. Because I mean that could be its own pod.
Yes.
Football and basketball, as
for
far
sure
as that goes, is let's get down to who is actually ranking these guys.
Yeah.
Now basketball is a much easier equation to solve than.
Dan Dockich always says, "Who ranks the rankers," which is so true.
It is.
Who holds those people accountable in a lot of different aspects. So I think that's.
Right.
But if you look at recruiting, my always thing is like, especially top 15 guys. Most of those guys are like, you know who
basketball,
they are. Yeah, basketball
100%.
especially.
Football is a complete inexact science.
But basketball, like, you know that LeBron James' freshman son is going to be a really good player. So, like, that's not nearly as hard. But I think, especially in basketball, you can look back 2 years later and see recruiting classes and they have 9 guys in the NBA, which is where, like, if you know a left tackle was 4th in the country, you have no idea. He may never play for Bama. He may be at Blinn Junior College in a week. You know what I mean? So that's a hard one. But recruiting, throw that one out.
But how hard would it be to recruit to LA, regardless of your facilities and stuff?
They say, I've never been to UCLA. They say the campus is unbelievable.
I imagine.
So it's a huge college town. It's a huge college campus. It's beautiful. It's in the good side. Like, UCLA is supposedly not in a very good area. And then all the history at UCLA.
UCLA or USC?
USC's in a bad area. Yeah, USC's not in a bad is in a bad area. But another thing about recruiting on the West Coast, who are you up against? I think that's another big reason why UCLA is it's a phenomenon. The jobs came open a couple of times in the past few years, and it's not been filled by anybody very good.
Yeah, that's been interesting. I do think Cronin will do okay out there.
They're playing a lot harder for him the last couple of years, but it's such a tough. It's a double-edged sword, that place, for sure.
I'm going to tell you one thing right now. You're not going to come in here and badmouth Steve Alford. I can tell you that much right now, buddy. So, that little slight hand. I saw you look at my Steve Alford, the 50-minute All-American workout VHS over there. Look into those eyes and tell me that guy's done anything wrong in his entire life.
All right, so I'll go back to that, too. He's also been a guy that's... Iowa's a tough place, but he won in New Mexico.
He did all right at Iowa there for a while. There were a few good years.
Yeah.
He won a couple of Big Ten tournaments.
Yeah.
Or at least one, for sure, because he beat IU and Jeffries and those guys. So I remember that one with Luke Recker.
That's a tough place.
Yeah. I mean, he's had success. I think he'll be fine at Nevada, too.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good fit. UCLA, especially if you're going to get one and dones like that, we talked about this before. Part of being able to develop players is getting guys to stay. And if you're in UCLA and you're constantly getting like he had to take all the balls, which ended up kind of being a disaster in itself. But he had guys in there, but it's hard to get consistency in those places when you constantly are taking one and dones that maybe not be big.
So this is a lead-in because we could talk about this
All
side
right.
of things all the time. So we got to check ourselves a little bit so we can get on to other stuff.
Fair.
But so the segue to me is coaching, because we had an interesting talk off mic here before we got started, and my point was with IU school that I love, that I went to. I was at the game last night. The general came back. It was awesome till we played and didn't play well. But and like you said, all of our friends are IU fans for the most part and all that stuff. And I've always contended that it's not Indiana's basketball tradition, Indiana University's basketball tradition. The state tradition is there for all time, with the one class and all that stuff. And myself and Meyer got into that the other day on the pod. Actually, we can't play that pod because we've messed up the recording, which is probably what's going to happen on this one too. But we'll get it. We'll go back and we'll redo it. I've always contended that it wasn't that Indiana basketball has so much great history. It's that Indiana basketball had Bob Knight. That's lightning in a bottle.
It's a perfect, yeah, and it's why he's so beloved. Like, if you go back and look, and he's a little before my time too, because I didn't get to see a ton of it, but went back and watched the 30 for 30 about how much he controlled the state of Indiana. People were fixated on him because of around the state. People just were gravitated so much to him. But yeah, he caught lightning in a bottle, and I think
he didn't catch lightning in a bottle. He was the lightning.
Yeah, he was lightning in a bottle.
Indiana University caught lightning in a bottle by hiring a young coach out of Army in 1978 or 79 or whatever it was.
68.
68. I mean, yeah.
But it's similar to, like, and you and I both agree on this, Coach K. Mm-hmm. Like, the Duke job was very good but not great. And I think that, look at what he's done. Duke's basketball success goes from 1990 to present day. 5 national championships. It's the reason why I think Duke as a program, so people get program and coach mixed up all the time. Duke's basketball program, outside Coach K, when they hire, is going to be a big deal because if he gets to name his successor, it's either Johnny Dawkins, Mike Bray, Tommy Amaker, Chris Collins, one of those guys, where the job, there's no way that job can continue to be as good as it is under him. I don't care what Nike puts in there, how much money they're putting into, and they're paying $9 million or whatever they're paying him. I just don't know if there's any way to make that program stay on the same track.
It's lightning in a bottle. Again, I'm going to keep saying that, and listeners are probably going to get sick of hearing me say it, but that's my best analogy for it. Lightning in a bottle. But here's the crazy thing. K doesn't survive this day and age with the start that he had there, the first 7 years or whatever it was. It's not in the internet age. So if he comes along, if Coach K is a young coach now and has come along at Duke and puts together those first, 5 to 6, 7 years or whatever, we don't know Coach K as Coach K.
He's gone.
He's gone. And the only reason he stuck around, I was reading a book about it, I think it was a Legends book. It had a lot of really good stories in there. But the only reason he is around because his AD stuck with him.
It's a lot. And that's such a hard thing now because, and especially now with what they're paying basketball coaches, and they want results immediatally.
But here's the mistake I think ADs make. And I could be completely wrong because I don't know a single AD ever in the college ranks. But it seems like knee-jerk reactions happen sometimes based off of message boards. But you have to understand, like, I'm on the Tennessee football message boards all the time. I love VolQuest. Shout out to VolQuest.
You're a sicko.
I love it. Right? But Tennessee puts 103,000 people in the stands every game, every Saturday for however many years that they've done that. And you're talking about maybe every day that I'm on there, 1,000 to 2,000 people on there. Which is a lot, right? 1,000, 2,000. But it's not a lot in the whole sum of Vol Nation.
It's Twitter. I mean, it's literally like 17% of people on there.
Every idiot has a voice. But they're the loudest. That's what's crazy. They're the loudest voice.
Like when people start talking about coach on a hot seat, It's literally brought up by message boards and Twitter.
That's it.
Like it never is brought up like.
But that's
he's
what I
lost
think.
the
I
team.
think like the national writers and stuff are getting the pulse of the program off of message boards now.
Yeah, that's fair. Because people, people are always going to go to those places. Like IU and Tennessee going to sell it no matter what. Like I don't care who they're playing.
Right.
They're always going to be there. So they have to check it somewhere. And if you search Twitter yesterday after Bob Knight's thing, madness. People are ready to kill this IU basketball team. When if they beat Maryland, they're 16-4.
I know that Maryland game was something else.
And it's crazy.
Right. So, anyways, back on topic. As far as let's go next blue blood. So we've covered UCLA, we've covered Duke, right? We've kind of covered IU with the Knight stuff, which is good. Let's focus on the three that we talked about that you mentioned earlier when you were ready to go all in 2 seconds into the podcast. And let's go back and let's look at them. Name the three again, and then pick one and start with it, and we'll talk about it.
I will go.
These are the three.
I think these are the three that they're not even like competitive. Those three are separate from everyone else.
They're never affected by anything, and they always win. These are the three.
Yes. First one I think you have to pick is Carolina. Because Michael Jordan played there.
We don't even have to rank them unless you want to rank them.
I don't. Yeah, I think that's a tough one. I think you go Carolina 1, Kentucky 2, and Kansas 3.
Well, Kansas has to be the third of that. And let me preface that again before I let you go. You saw my sign out there. Pay heed, all those who enter, beware the fog. We got it hanging high here in HQ, right? It's a huge part of college basketball. I want Kansas licensing so damn bad because they have some of the dopest shorts from the past with Paul Pierce and Danny Manning and Kirk Heinrich group and all that. I mean, they had some legit shorts, right?
Yeah.
But why Kansas has to be third in that group is national championship.
For sure.
And that's where it all starts. But that's the same trick. That's the same trick with UCLA, where we said, like, you can't look at the national championships, and now I'm completely flipping it and say, but you got to look at the national championships, right? So, but even with that continuity of winning at Kansas in conference, just in conference
12 straight.
It's insane. I think it's 13. I think it's 13.
It is.
Or it was 13.
But the best thing that ever happened to them was they hired Roy Williams, who was an assistant. I mean, that takes absolute guts.
Yeah.
And then to follow it up by and still Bill Self from a national championship contending Illinois team. Those, whatever that is, 30 years of 30, 35, 40, whatever it is.
I have a Bill Self story.
Really?
I'm gonna botch it because I vaguely remember the details, but it's so goddamn funny. I feel like I have to tell it.
Go.
So he went to, where did he go to school? Where did he play? Do you know?
No.
He played at Oklahoma State.
Yes.
Right? So he played at Oklahoma State. And the story, and I'm going to screw up the stats on this or whatever. But anyways, it was a senior night, his last game at Oklahoma State. And I want to say, and this is where I'm a little foggy, he was like 2 assists away from a triple-double or a double-double or having a really nice game, right? So the old scorekeeper that was there, like, faked a couple assists to him, right? This is back in the day. And so the legend is that everybody goes out for beers and stuff after the game, or everybody's out on town after the game because they won or whatever, senior night and all that stuff. And Bill Self is at the bar with the statistician, and he's just sending him beer after beer after beer.
That can't be true.
I'm telling you, supposedly the statistician, obviously an older dude, works for Oklahoma State, and then he's got this senior guard that's like at the bar,
right.
like just feeding him beers, like, I needed those couple assists.
That's why I say I don't care if my team pays people. I want stuff like that.
I love it. But Bill Self always is talked about as like the nicest dude, the dude that you want to go have drinks with, and like the coolest dude. And I know I kind of jumped to Kansas when you were wanting to talk Carolina, but
no, but yeah, like I think part of being a great program is like your importance to basketball. Have you seen Kansas, the facility they built for basketball players? Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
There's a YouTube video from a couple years ago. It's got a barber shop, a basketball court, and it's where all the basketball players live. I mean, it is. It's a different
That's
world.
like the Wildcat Lounge from Kentucky.
Yes,
that was a huge recruiting violation that eventually got shut down, and now everybody has them.
So if you look, and I
think it was a recruiting violation, or ended up being
I think Graham walks through and does the tour of that place. I mean, it's like 3 floors.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
Unbelievable.
Some of that stuff blows your mind, like the Oregon football facilities, just.
And that's what, like, so part of that is the commitment to your program to be so great. And Kansas is that, and they're in the middle of absolutely no.
Have you been to Fog Island?
No,
I haven't either.
I told my wife. It's funny. A week ago, I said we're going to Lawrenceburg. We're going, and she's like, "Why? It's really not that far. I want to go to my cousin's been to Fog. I want to go for a good one."
All right, so we're gonna go. All right. I know how to do these podcasts now. I set this whole thing up by myself. You saw it here live.
We're done.
Will podcast from Fog Island.
Ooh.
We'll take it in there. We'll get thrown out, but we will do it.
We'll make it happen. I'm in.
100%. We got to do it. Let's put it on the schedule for next season. Let's table it next season. Put it on the books.
Done. For sure.
100%.
All right.
You heard it here first.
Carolina, Kentucky.
Go ahead. Go Carolina. Because you want to go Carolina. And you want to go Carolina 1. I would dispute that. Kentucky's always been 1 to me.
And I don't know why Carolina would be 1 to me. Jordan and the run, like, I always thought Carolina was so cool, like Vince Carter. Like, even, and I hate.
That Tar Heel logo is badass. Both of them, all of them. Every logo they have is amazing. I'm not shitting you. I got several Carolina posters hanging up in here too. I just like that Tar Heel, man.
But I think that, so they've actually made 2 hires that have been in the last 4 with who got the job right
Guthridge?
after. Yeah, Guthridge got it, which kind of had.
But that was just an extension of Dean Smith.
It's like the Greg.
And he went to a Final Four.
Yeah, and Matt Doherty probably puts one of the great Carolina teams together. And then Roy Williams happens to come in, and they're absolutely loaded. Yep. Marvin Williams is the number 2 pick, and he's coming off the bench.
Yeah.
I mean, that team is just crazy good. But Roy
Williams, what he's done there, in the middle of the Duke dynasty, I mean, he's getting those in the middle of K at his height, and
what's crazy?
That's nuts, dude. That's a lot of fucking national championships on one road at the same time.
And he did it differently than the other Blue Bloods. Like, he did it with, like, junior and senior teams, like, very, very athletic. So I'll ask you this question. When's the last time Duke won the ACC regular season title?
It's been a while, because I was just looking at that not too long ago.
I think it's 2010.
They'll win it this year.
Yeah. But it's crazy, and you and I talked about Bennett, too. Bennett's won 3 ACC championships, and you talk about that heyday run.
Okay, listen. I wasn't going to get into the IU situation. And then you went and brought up Tony Bennett.
Unbelievable.
And I know, well, the rumor is he passed on the IU job, 2 times ago.
When he was at Washington State.
Correct.
Yeah.
Would have been, obviously this is not breaking news, a home run hire. From a basketball standpoint, the Indiana fan base would eat this Virginia-style basketball up. It would be a younger, modern version of Bob Knight basketball.
Did you see when he walked into the Wrights gym the other night?
No, I heard he was there.
So he went and talked to him. So, like, nicest guy in the world,
sure.
Unbelievably good human being. But, like, his teams compete.
Yeah.
And they like people like nobody wants to watch 52-49.
Bullshit.
You go 28-4.
17,000 people at Assembly Hall would watch that shit night in and night out.
All day.
All day.
I've always said he's the perfect fit. Now, it'll never happen because he won a title there.
Sure.
And because there's a lot of backstory about his sister and the girls' basketball job. But he would have been... I think there's one other perfect fit for IU, and people think I'm crazy. But he would have been the ultimate, and he would have went down as... You win at Virginia, it's great. You win at IU. It's like winning at Madison Square Garden.
That Virginia stuff, Virginia is one of our schools, obviously, and we love Virginia. The Virginia stuff is awesome. Like that fan base was so starved for a national championship. And they had, like, what Ralph Sampson did, like, in the early 80s. That dude was, like, 3-time National Player of the Year. Think about that.
I sat next to him for 2 straight Big Ten tournaments. For, like, multiple games.
Why was he at the Big Ten tournament?
His son played for Minnesota.
Oh, that's right.
And Flip Saunders sat right in front of us. And R.I.P.
Yeah.
But yeah, Flip Saunders was in front of Ralph Sampson. I didn't know who. I was like 22. Sat next to him, 18 size dress shoes. Unbelievable. And he's like still like 7'2", 195 pounds. Like unbelievable shape.
Yeah. I mean, just a monster. But they got caught in that tobacco road, the ACC, and it's just so hard. That's what makes like Valvano winning. And I know that was like a miracle national championship, but NC State having 2 national championships in the ACC in the middle of all, I mean, it's just so crazy it's so hard to win. It's so hard to win.
So my friends put me in a chat. We're in a group chat, and there's a GIF that says it's hard, and like, cause I always like, and I'm a apologist for Michigan and everything, and I've always said, dude, it's hard to win, and like I get so much grief from that comment. And back to Bennett, he's never leaving Virginia. Like he's loved there. He gave his assistants raises, and it's a perfect storm for him. But he's. I actually thought his best team was with Brogdon. I
love Brogdon.
Brogdon and God, who else was on that team? But no, his consistency is unbelievable.
It's amazing. So this book, and I think a lot of what I'm saying comes from John Feinstein's The Legends Club. You should read this. You can take this with you if you want to.
Really?
Pretty interesting. My dad gave it to me. But it just follows Krzyzewski, Dean Smith, Valvano when they were all trying to make it. Now, Dean Smith was the godfather of the ACC at the time, but then you had these 2 young bucks coming in. But Rick Barnes is in here at Clemson, and you cover a lot of coaches and stuff.
Really?
So the story that Valvano tells in there is he gets the job, right? He's an unknown from Iona. And he's sitting down, and he takes over for Norm Sloan, was the coach at NC State before, who won with David Thompson national championships in like 74 or something like that. So he's at the barber, goes and gets his first haircut, and he's just talking to the barbershop folk, right? And barber's cutting his hair, and he says, "Son, I hope you do a lot better than that last guy did," right? And Valvano's sitting there saying, like, what the hell? That guy won a national championship. So he just says, he's like, well, I don't know. You know, Coach Sloan did a pretty good job. He said, won you guys a national championship here. And the barber said, yeah, he did. But think about what Dean Smith would have done with those teams. So that's what everybody. So when I keep saying, like, winning in that era and that, you know, where there were so many great teams and so many great players and so many great coaches, and then for Valvano to win a national title there, for Krzyzewski to come in and make his own way at Duke under that was Dean Smith had a hold of that whole region.
Yeah, he
for
ran
a
it.
long time, and it's just amazing.
How many titles does he have?
Dean only has 2. I say only 2 titles.
Isn't that crazy?
But when you look back at the teams, you can realistically say only 2. It's just nuts. Yeah, he has the Jordan jump shot in '82, and then he has the Montrose Chris Webber timeout in '93.
And so my first recollection, '85. So I was born in '85. So like the Fab Five was my first ever team. I was very, very young. My oldest brother's a huge Michigan fan. The reason why I am.
And a complete idiot.
Absolute idiot. New father though. Congratulations.
Shout out to John.
But
we're gonna get John on a podcast. And it's gonna be an epic.
It's gonna be wild. But the Rasheed Wallace and that team for me is like
Stackhouse Wallace. That team was crazy.
Is Jamison after them?
So they could have overlapped. So that was where I was headed with that. Is they could have overlapped by at least a year, if not 2, if those guys don't go pro. So you're coming out of the Dean Smith era though, because Carter and Jamison, they might have played for Dean like 1 or 2 years, but then they ended with Guthridge.
All right.
And that was the team that Guthridge took to the Final Four. Was the Vince Carter team, Vince Carter, Antoine Jamison team.
So that team,
Shamon Williams, Ed Cota, that group. But some of those guys could have because that was like peak everybody leaving early.
Yeah.
But that's when it became in vogue to do that. You know, and it just became common to do, I should say.
That team is like, that run is like the early Duke thousands run. Yeah. With like Shane Battier, Mike Dunleavy, Carlos Boozer, Jay Williams, Elton Brand, Jay Williams. I mean, whew. So
that '99 Duke team was out of control, and what's crazy is that UConn '99 team was really goddamn good too.
So that is the 2000 UConn team.
99.
99.
UConn.
Is that Jake Voskuhl?
He was part of it, but I would probably start with Rip Hamilton.
Rip, yeah.
And Khalid El-Amin and Ricky Moore and those guys. Really good. Like the team part. I mean, those dudes were no joke. I think I lost 2 games. Duke only lost 1.
So crazy thing about that, and this reminds me, Calhoun.
Yes, crazy. Lightning in a bottle.
Will he be remembered as we remember Jay Wright now? A place that's nothing else but basketball, really, to speak of. And unbelievable. If you look at the team that beat Michigan, they're going to have like 5 or 6 good pros off that team. Okay pros. I should take that back.
Yeah. Calhoun's interesting because Calhoun's got a little night in him.
A lot of night in it.
So, whereas that success, but he would flat out just say whatever was on his mind.
When the guy walks up to him and the thing goes, "You're the highest paid."
Yeah.
Shut up. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about.
So I've always been concerned about that with Coach Knight too, because the society is going a completely different direction away from that type, right? And so people want to look back and reflect back and be like, he was this, he was that. But there's no place.
You can't hold them to the standards of today back in there because they don't overlap.
It doesn't work, and we can say that because we lived back then.
Yeah.
I mean, the '80s is a lot different than the 2020s.
Yeah,
it's different.
The same way you say that Coach K would have never made it today, the 2 greatest basketball coaches maybe of all time in college basketball would never make it in today's game.
Yeah, probably.
Because Bob Knight would have been fired multiple times before.
If he would have acted the way he would, but that's all like
you can't.
All hypothetical stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for that time and that place and that setting, he was what everybody aspired to be. And what's funny is people are going. I don't want people outside of Indiana to just kind of sweep Coach Knight what he did under the rug because of some of the PC stuff that's not PC anymore. I just don't think that's fair.
No.
I just don't. But I know a lot of people disagree with that, and that's fine. That's just, I feel like Calhoun is a little bit in that range too. And I don't know why, but I don't feel like he ever gets his just due. Now, I'm sure when you go into Connecticut, Calhoun is raved about.
He's got 2 and then
3.
He has 3 and then they won right after he left.
4. He's really responsible for 4, responsible as far as putting the team together for that 4th one too. Now Ollie coached it obviously, but it's crazy to think about. So I'm sure he's like revered there, but we're here in Southern Indiana, and when you talk coaches and stuff, you don't feel Calhoun.
No.
And then like us, people that understand the game or follow it and love it, throw it out there, and people are almost like surprised that he won 3.
I said 2, and it's like 3, and then they won
right after he leaves.
Maybe the worst team to win a national title.
Well, that was the worst national title game.
It was very.
And that's two 99 schools too. But
yeah, it was just
that UConn Butler game was brutal. But shit, that IU Maryland national title game was brutal too. We've had some real stinkers in the national championship, and then we've had some great games.
The Carolina Villanova where he says bang.
Part of it, yeah. I mean, it's just part of it, right? But that style, but UConn and Butler both got to that game playing that kind of muck it up.
Yeah, Matt Howard.
Yeah, and they played it to perfection. And so there was some beauty in that.
Yeah.
It's the Virginia thing. You know what I mean? There's some beauty in that.
Yeah,
it's basketball purist,
and people that say that they don't love that, like that's crazy. They executed a game plan it's like no one else's business.
You gotta look at it from a different thing. But for a lot of people, it's just entertainment though too. Like I like we like the X's and O's and that stuff too because it's just the strategy and all that stuff too.
It's funny. We'll never talk about UConn as a top program. And they have 4 national titles since '98.
Well, they got to be up there. I wouldn't call UConn a blue blood, but they're in that second tier for sure.
Are they top 10?
Yeah, absolutely.
Job or program?
Probably program. I that's really hard for me to say. I don't know.
The three biggest things that people get mixed up in whenever I do this argument is coach over program. Like Bennett's
But okay, so here, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
We, as just like observer fans, don't really know what the program is. You don't really know what the powers that be, we don't know what makes a great program great. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And Connecticut gets bad because the Big East fell apart in front of their face and they've got no choice.
Yeah.
They're kind of stuck with where they're at.
But they're going back.
Yeah.
They're going back.
But it will never be
That's
the
big
old,
news, damn Woods.
But it won't be the old Big East, which is like...
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. Like, I get that. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the old
No,
Big
you're right.
East.
Because everybody's kind of in a better situation now.
Because the Big East right now is still badass. Like,
no, the Big East is really good.
Legit. It's badass, man. We're going out to New York for the Big East tourney in March. We got some news coming on that too, folks.
All right. Let's finish this. Top 10.
I forgot what we were talking about.
We were going Blue Bloods. We went from Carolina.
We can't go top 10. We're gonna cap it at this 3 that you're talking about.
The 3.
And what we'll do is we'll make this a 2-parter or 3-parter. We'll come back and get the second tier or the rest. So
are you with why is Kentucky your 1?
Because they've won like every decade. That's a big one to me. So if you can consistently win, and I'm talking modern era, so let's say after UCLA's dominant run, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, Kentucky wins throughout.
And you and I are saying the same thing, but my thing has always been when shit hits the fan, which school is willing to put their nuts on the table and go get their guy?
Kentucky.
Because Cal left Memphis when they played for a national title. And they're like, whatever it costs.
But it's a no-brainer, and that's no disrespect to Memphis. When Kentucky comes calling, you answer the call.
Yes. But also...
When Kansas comes calling, you answer the call. When Carolina comes calling, you answer that phone call.
There's only 5 phone calls in that I think.
Those 3 for sure. Who are your other 2?
I get killed because I don't think Duke's a top, but when Duke
is 100%.
It's got to be
100%. Sorry, I forgot about Duke.
Indiana. I think Indiana.
Yeah, but okay. So here's the thing with Indiana, though, right? Is that Indiana did call a lot of people in these last 2 coaching hires, and people did not pick up the phone, did not take that call, and did not take that job. So I almost feel like it almost gets knocked down a little bit because we've seen it recently, and people aren't falling over themselves to take that job for whatever reason.
Do you know who they hired over? Who they picked Kelvin Sampson over?
Kelvin Sampson would have taken us to multiple Final Fours.
No, Kelvin Sampson had that place rolling in a matter of... It's why I always say it's a top 5 job.
Houston wrong. He's a great coach. Kelvin Sampson can coach his ass off.
Yes.
Period.
Do you know who they picked Sampson over?
Who?
Guess.
I don't know. I can't even put it myself back in the time.
John Beeline.
Yeah, and Beeline's awesome.
He's my absolute love fest. The best developer of players this era's ever seen.
Beeline's the man. But I love Beeline at West Virginia.
Kevin Pittsnoggle.
I loved it. Like
Kevin Gansey.
He would come out there with these dudes and like run 1-3-1 traps.
And never ran it at Michigan. Literally couldn't run it.
Because I couldn't wait to see it.
It was so bad.
Michigan games like, come on, man.
Novak was playing the bottom. Stu Douglas up top. 2 Indiana players were just very, very, very. They ended up turning Michigan basketball around. Yeah. But Stu Douglas Novak played like the big. It was like a 6'4" from Chesterton. Like, great shooter, but ended up playing the bottom, and that was a different world.
Beeline's the man.
But I think IU is that job because of the fan base is nuts.
Yeah, rabid. And starved for success now.
Yes, and you have what Indiana basketball is, I think, is a little bit of... The talent in Indiana is a little overrated when you talk about, like, the collective of Indiana basketball, the whole state, and, like, how it is.
No, you did not.
Oh, don't get me started. Illinois basketball, twice as many NBA players as Indiana.
Sure, that's Chicago. I mean, they have Chicago. We don't. Don't come into 99 HQ and start shitting on Indiana.
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Indiana basketball talent because I think it's really good. And I think it's been really good for decades.
Yes, it is really, really good. That's why that job is so good. And Illinois has so much talent next door, and you're not really fighting against anyone in Illinois. Like that's the
that's been the University of Illinois' problem is they haven't been able to get the Chicago talent.
And Underwood is an absolute dog, by the way.
What do you mean?
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's been great. He's been great.
I
love seeing that though. Okay, so this was 99's done to me. Like, I'm an IU guy through and through, right? But it's turned me into a fan of so many different teams. So now I'm just kind of like a basketball fan.
I'm a coach fan.
Like, I almost just root for everybody. I'm like, man, fuck, that shit was good, man.
See, I'm
good
a coach guy. I'm a coach guy because I'm like, that guy can win at this different place. Like, it's the perfect fit, though. Underwood won at Stephen F. Austin at a high level.
Sure.
Then went to Oklahoma State, started out 0-6 in the league and got to the tournament.
Right.
And then took the Illinois job and brought Antigua with him. So,
if you can coach, you can coach. But that coaching stuff is awesome. Like, you just respect the shit out of good coaches.
For sure.
Because it's not easy to win. Like we've been saying, it's really, really hard.
But there's only a handful of guys who haven't have titles anymore. Like, if you look at like what college basketball coaches have done, there are almost no national titles left.
Isn't that crazy?
Because if you take out
K and Roy.
Take out K, Roy, and then Jay Wright has 2.
Yeah.
But Cal has 1.
Self has 1.
Self has 1.
Bennett has 1.
Izzo has 1.
Izzo has 1, which is crazy because he rattled off
11 Final Fours.
Yeah. He rattled off like 8 and 10 years.
The crazy thing is his teams have been to the Final Four and haven't even been great teams.
Yeah,
like, he's had some average teams get there. Like, be like 10-point underdogs and they lead 8 and just somehow find. That team the Michigan State versus Carolina, when they played the first game of the year and then they came back, that Michigan State team's one of the most overachieving teams. They ran into a buzzsaw. But there's only a hand, because you think like all these guys have left now. Billy Donovan's out of the league. Pitino's out of the league. It's just the coaching, it's very hard.
Boeheim has 1. He's still in it. But but you talk about, so you take Boeheim, Roy, and Kay. I mean, those guys are up in their 70s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're not going to be around long. So, I mean, somebody's going to have to come in and start eating up national championships. I mean, Jay Wright's obviously been phenomenal. You have to think Bennett has a long career ahead of him and probably will get another one at some point,
Yeah.
But again, who's to say? I mean, you could be done at 1, and 1 is nothing to sniff at. Like
Bill Self will go down as one of the great coaches in this generation and will have 1 national title. And maybe the luckiest national title with a 3.
But okay, so I hate that lucky shit. Like, I hate it. Because
fortunate, I shouldn't say lucky. Is
there
unfair.
You go. Fortunate.
Because Virginia's title last year was very, very fortunate.
Have you watched the thing on the ACC network about their title run, like those VHSs that I have lined up here? They have one that runs on the ACC network on the Virginia one.
No.
I sat down here and watched it, and it had like tears in my eyes at the end of it, and I'm like, man, that thing really got hold of me down here. But then I'm like watching it, I'm like, how did they win that game?
All right, here's my bold
claim. How did they win this game?
Here's my bold claim before I'm done with this. Chris Beard will be the next coach of a great blue blood.
Well, that's not that bold.
Guy makes $4.7 million.
Chump change nowadays.
I know. If somebody wanted Beard, if somebody blue blood goes calling and wants a guaranteed winner, it's him.
Thanks, so. That's your guy.
Angelo State Division II program, and then went to Arkansas Little Rock. They're like BPI, whatever the thing they use, like 300, 296, 296. He goes there, tournament, beat Purdue, and then takes the UNLV job for a month, and then goes to Texas Tech where I love guys who win at places.
Who did he understudy under?
Oh, Bob Knight. Come on. You guys love that. You Indiana people eat that up.
The General. He's back.
But Chris Beard won at Texas Tech where no one wins at. Bennett won at Washington State where no
one else
wins
won at Texas Tech? Who else did a pretty
Bob
good job?
Knight got to a Sweet 16.
Bob Knight won some games at Texas Tech when Texas Tech wasn't even on the map.
Yes. But that's always my argument.
Almost took that Andre Emmett team to the Final Four, too.
That's my argument why Chris Beard will leave, because one of those blue blood places is worth going there for. because you can win even when you're not great.
Well, at some point, you know, it's really cool to say, like, I'm a head basketball coach at Indiana University, or, that's an ego thing.
Yeah, and those guys are egomaniacs.
Oh, they have to be. That's what makes them great. Like, you can't not be a huge egomaniac and be great at that craft. You just can't.
No, and they grind to get there. Like
Sure.
Very few guys in coaching have ever got there by just being.
And ego doesn't have to mean flashy. I don't mean that at all. But you don't think Tony Bennett believes in himself? That Tony Bennett can go to any program in the country and win? Absolutely.
Yes.
Before the national title.
Oh,
Before the
yeah.
final, he knew what he was doing.
The crazy thing is that people questioned him a little bit after the 16 because they didn't score enough. But he also lost a pro right before that, too. I mean, Hunter got hurt in the ACC tournament.
You saw how valuable he was.
He's a freak.
He's awesome. So, all right. So Kentucky. Have we talked about Kentucky? We kind of did in a roundabout way.
Kentucky, man, you look at back-to-back guys. I mean, I guess Tubby was there for a while. But Pitino.
He won a national championship.
That's true.
Tubby won a national championship there.
He's won a national championship and been run out of like his last 3 places. Kind of a little unjust.
But part of that speaks to the greatness of Kentucky too. And I think Tubby's a good coach. I think
he's won everywhere.
But Kentucky just wins. They win every decade. They just do. It's just what they do, man.
I get Pitino's teams are silly.
Yeah.
Cal's teams, I don't think he gets enough credit for taking a brand new team every year and they almost get better every single year.
Well, I think he has to share in the blame of the new team every year. I think that's maybe why he doesn't get credit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, you're actually the one that's creating that team to be that new every year. That's the narrative, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that's what it is. I think what he does is amazing.
Unbelievable.
It is amazing.
I don't think.
But all these guys are incredible. Every guy that we talked about is incredible.
But he doesn't get enough credit for his talent evaluation. He never whiffs on guys. Almost never. Yeah. And then granted, he's picking from like the pick of the litter. But like, look at the 5 stars that he's had come in there. And like, name 5 bad ones.
Yeah, it's hard because I don't really like follow them closely though. You know what I mean? Get a Kentucky fan in here, they might come up with a few.
Is Kentucky a 19-9 school?
No, not yet. We got close. We got really close. Yeah, we got really close. So
you're talking about fighting with somebody like these blue bloods, like they are. The licensing's got to be crazy, right?
Yeah, it's not too bad. We'll get there.
I like it.
We'll get there. We got some really good schools, man.
Oh,
incredible schools.
I'm gonna go on a shopping spree. That's what I do. I just come to the old basement.
That, folks, is why I invited him down here to do this podcast.
I got about 17 19-9 shirts, I think. I have one on now, Creighton.
All right, so here's the deal. We're gonna wrap this up because we're probably way past our time. I don't even know what time it is and when we started, and I don't even know if this shit's recording. But we'll have you back. We'll do this again. So we'll look at like that next group. Because that'd be fun. It'd be fun to just keep coming back and doing it one after another and just kind of going to the next group. Because I think that's when the arguments can kind of start.
Yeah, the 3 are in argument. You can't argue.
You know, you can't really argue too much with what was said today. Maybe you can pick it apart a little bit. We got some listeners that'll pick us apart.
That's fine.
I'll get some emails here. But that's cool.
Dan Woods 11 on Twitter if you want to come at it.
I didn't tell you could start coming on here and plugging your shit.
You'll cut it out if you need to anyways.
No, hell, I barely even knew how to get the mic started. I don't know how to cut this shit. All right, brother. I appreciate you coming down, man. We'll do it again.
Love it.
Thank you for listening to the 19-9 podcast with HVS, the High Volume Shooters. For more information, check out the blog at 199.com under HVS. And while you're there, do yourself a favor and pick up some retro college shorts.